right, welcome back to the Countertop podcast. This is going to be a kind of a weekly podcast where we all touch base on topics that we want to talk about from the week or something we find interesting, and we kind of just throw it around and discuss our ideas and opinions and kind of so on and so forth. Once again, we appreciate you taking a listen or watching us on YouTube. We are on all the major sites: Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, kind of so on and so forth. So feel free to give us a follow, like, comment, ring the bell, subscribe, whatever that website may have for us. So any housekeeping kind of from last week's episode, any additional topics that we want to touch base from there?
No, nothing from me.
No, not here.
Perfect. Well, I'll just jump into my first topic. As you guys know, and this may be kind of diving into our geeky side of things, but CyberPunk 2077 was released just this past week, and wanted to kind of give, I'm sure you guys have seen the internet kind of blowing up on goods, bads, and ugly, as well as the stock market and I don't know why I'm drawing a blank for the company's name now.
CD Projekt Red.
CD Projekt Red, there we go. Taking a hit as well. So I kind of want to touch, because I think this, from my end of things, I've never liked pre-orders of games. And I think yes, you're supporting the creator of that with the pre-sales and all of that, but then also you're kind of taking away the ability for them to maybe be held to a higher standard when that releases, because they already know X dollar amount is sold. And this being such a large title that everyone was expecting, and it got pushed out, and that doesn't help that coronavirus and everyone's staying home. And I think the build up for this one is probably one of the top games of the year expectations.
Yeah.
And for anyone that doesn't have a geeky side or hasn't played Cyberpunk, but there's some big criticisms around the game with certain kind of promises CD Projekt Red came out with that either missed the mark or aren't existent.
Thank God for the memes, though. They're great. I have been loving the Reddit memes constantly about this, because I'm enjoying it, but holy crap, the memes are wonderful.
Yeah.
And the best part is they're using their own in-game camera to make the memes, and it's so wonderful.
And I think that's, so my kind of bringing it back to a question to you guys, where do you fall on, and maybe this can stem outside of the gaming world as well, of pre-orders and startup companies and Indiegogo, GoFundMe's, those type of things that kind of maybe branch out a little bit further than just this game. How do you feel about that whole process, and where do you guys stand?
I mean, I've never been an early adopter like I've touched on in the past, so I think that's the biggest reason I've never really bought into pre-orders. It does have a little bit to do with wanting a better product and not having them see a huge predicted sales amount and deciding to release it early, because I know that was all the times that this Cyberpunk game has been delayed. That's been one of everyone's prerequisites now, is this game's got to be perfect if they're going to delay it so many times before it comes out, and then it gets released and it's full of bugs and issues and all these other things that cause people to complain. I think I personally would have rather seen a game like that delayed even further to be absolutely perfect, instead of them just releasing either an unfinished product or a finished product that wasn't tested enough. So I think that's just kind of where my viewpoint is on that.
Yeah, I would have to say there's an interesting draw set for me, because I loved hearing about in I don't know, probably 2019. I don't know. When did Fallout 76 come out? And Anthem. That was a great year. That had been 19.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was
somewhere
19.
around there,
beginning of 19.
But it was the same story, except for the differences is those games launched as a software as a service, which is much different than a standalone game in first person. No software as a service, no online interconnectivity, no microtransactions, no interdependencies on that says, hey, this game is broken. You could pay me more to fix it as it goes. But we know it's there, and we're not promising to fix it, but we'll just introduce new cost measures to correct what you guys don't like. And so if you break those apart a little bit, to your original question, do you support pre-funding projects? Yeah, 100%. I think that there's a known risk that goes along with that. And I think that it, one, helps for generating capital and liquidity for startups that wouldn't otherwise be available without, having capital that you could leverage for financing. It also allows you to retain creative freedoms where, bringing in additional partners or other monies in there, you lose those creativity freedoms with whatever projects. Maybe it's not video games, maybe it's, a television show, maybe it's something else. The ability to crowdsource it for people directly supporting that producer versus, that producer going out and giving away sections of their vision for pure dollars, I think is something that is overall beneficial to our, I guess, art in multiple expressions. So I don't think the problem is with pre-ordering. I think the problem goes back to a question I think one of our buddy has asked, sometime while we were playing video games is marketing inherently evil? Right. And it goes back to what measures are done throughout that process that otherwise is dishonest. But the pure fact of crowdsourcing or getting funding from pre-orders or sales or internet people just handing you money for rebuilding your yacht so you can go crash again, that's fine. I'm good with that.
And let me tie into maybe an additional question as you're talking. I kind of thought of what should someone's expectation be of I've pre-ordered, I've crowdsourced, now my opinion matters, or I have the right to complain.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not where I was going to go with that.
Well, that's the day and age. I think that kind of topic comes into play.
I think people believe that even if it's not true, But I don't know. I think maybe I'm trying to differentiate things in my head because I've played paid beta games or beta games that allow you to buy in-game content or something like that to help with the flushing out of the game before it gets released. And so I was going to say I would rather see a system like that, but I think that's totally separate from pre-orders. That's a totally different philosophy on how to handle developing and releasing a game. So it's harder to tie them together because I think I would rather see a system like that, but then that's not a pre-order. That's just a paid beta.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's interesting too, because I mean, a lot of those, you get a higher risk of failure for paid betas than you do for pre-orders, because pre-orders generally, when purchased through a third party, warranty your purchase and your return. Yeah. So if you, with any game, at least on Steam, if you don't play a ton of hours, you could say, well, this wasn't what I wanted. And regardless of your original investment in the pre-order, you still have protections and consumer rights. And we saw that happen with Fallout 76 in Australia in 2019, where that lawsuit backtracked and had them, regardless of hours spent, regardless of their own ECULAs or whatever they're called, they were required by law to federally give refunds. So the consumer protection exists regardless of what perceived notions like you're getting at, Brandon, that may happen from people who get their little, I'm on a soapbox and I made this game because I made a pre-order. It's like, nah, you really might have bought coffee for a month.
Yeah. I think it really depends on I think it really depends on how the manufacturer or developer handles it also, because you saw the same kind of thing with No Man's Sky. And granted, it took them a while to fix all the issues that people had with that, but they did re-release the game fully fleshed out, and people enjoyed it significantly more. I think we'll see where it goes from here with CyberPunk, but I think based on the demand of the game and the hype of the game, they will try and work to get most of those bugs fleshed out as quickly as possible to maintain that hype going into holiday season and stuff like that, where people are really going to get into playing it.
No, I think so, 100%. And them being, Witcher 3 being, one of their titles, I think
Hmm.
they to stand for their next, game. I think the investment to return right here is fix this as much as you can to make it perfect, so that your next title has potential to be another large one like this.
Yeah.
Because these don't
Dude,
come around very often.
the memes though. Can I say, as someone who's put 30 hours into Cyberpunk already, the memes are 100% true.
Yeah.
It's hysterical. Like, I'm enjoying the game, but you can't, like, I didn't buy into the hype, but God, those memes are just spot on,
Yeah.
and they're like, they don't even lay in the bed right. Like, one guy hopped out of walked out of a door, and there's just a car hurling from across the map right at him, and you're like, what is this? Like, it's broken on a lot of different things, but you got to take those two, like, poking fun at it, and then again, like we talked about it 2 weeks ago, death threats to people. It went that far already, and a lot of the radio silence from CD Projekt Red at this point is, a lot of the, well, people are super nasty at us right now, and that's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it kind of goes into my topic then a little bit, if I could do that segue.
Yep.
The hype in front of releases, not only in games, but also, as I'll talk here, on graphics cards or other core components to video games or gaming PCs. And I don't know, I don't see this stuff happening with vacuums, but I'm not really looking at Good Housekeeping to see what the newest Shark vacuum is going to be and what the reviews are compared to
You're missing
Dyson.
out.
Yeah.
I get told what to buy on that stuff. So Um, but what's interesting is we're seeing, one, with CD Projekt Red, reviewers were not allowed to use their own images. If they were going to place out a review of the game, they had to use provided stills or videos from CD Projekt Red in the review. There were several people who opted out of, like, Skill Up was one I used to watch. But they opted out of placing a review until they could use their own images. And then Nvidia recently,
This got ugly.
Hardware
Yeah.
Unboxed, when they said, we're not sending you any more cards until you review it the way we want to, and focusing on what we want to focus on. And that immediately was shared in our social media age, and they got a lot of backlash from it. So, kind of on the lines of what you're saying, Brandon, does anybody think that review guidelines are a good idea in any industry?
No. I mean, I guess
Well,
I don't know what some people
it,
end users think, but I think that is always going to taint a review one way or the other if there's guidelines around how it's supposed to be performed. I think if a company wants an honest opinion on a product, they need to just send the product out, let people do testing the way that they do testing, and release their review based on that and what their viewer base wants to see. Because I know Gamers Nexus has had problems in the past as well with tearing cards down before the manufacturer says they should be torn down, because they don't want those hardware images released and stuff like that. But if you're going to send the product out, you have to be willing to understand that those people are going to do what they do to this product that you provided to them in order to complete the review.
I think it's a double-edged sword on this, and I'll maybe play devil's advocate on maybe both sides. One, because I think there's probably needs to be guidelines to protect a reviewer themselves to avoid situations that we've run into here, where Nvidia is releasing saying you have to do it this way. But then on the other side, I think you're also, especially in the day of YouTube, that a large content creator could affect stocks majorly by falsifying a review. And so it's and I don't think that's always the case, but I think there needs to be that balance of at least protecting, in a sense, of the reviewer being able to give an honest review, and then the company being able to have a honest review done. And I know those are kind of morphing into different topics as well. But I think this day and age, a YouTuber could not crash a company, but severely hurt a company with some new product coming out because they say it's bad or
You're
they
talking
did
about
it
like a
wrong.
defamation guideline there or
Yeah,
something.
I think that's
Yeah,
kind of a fine line because there's going to be laws that protect any blatant misinformation being put out just to slander a product
yeah,
versus they personally might not recommend this product, which may lead to a decrease in sales because their viewer base doesn't want to buy it as much, but that's not necessarily due in part to false
yeah,
information or anything like that.
yeah.
But I think that is where, if you want to see honest reviews online before buying a product, you need to be aware that not every product's going to be recommended, and manufacturers especially need to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think too is to kind of go back on the devil's advocate thing, saying that there's a responsibility of the manufacturer to vet who they send products to, that no, they shouldn't send it to anybody, that any YouTuber should not get it. But if you feel the risk of target audience, the risk of, defamation, slander, the legal representation of the companies that or the people that are reviewing your product. If you send it to, let's say, company X who has 5,000 employees, they're going to be less risky of a review because of all of the bylaws that exist for them to operate legally, right?
Yeah,
That's going to be reviewed by other people. And so I think that I don't think it's we need to put rules in here that's saying that you can only do the review the way we want to. I think it's a more of the responsibility of the manufacturer to make their product available to only reputable sources and to vet them through their own internal processes. But that doesn't say, like in this case, right? This one was, we've already vetted you. We have an existing relationship. We don't like the way you're doing it, so I'm going to pull it. Well, that's fine. They have every right to do that.
mm-hmm.
But then should, and I'm glad it is, public information for them to share it out, going, hey, this is what they're doing and why, because this is our process for reviewing it. This is what they want to focus on. We differ. That's cool. Everyone has a right to do so. But us going, ooh, like maybe I don't want to participate in those companies' products where they're so controlling of who reviews it. And then I'm just going to not pre-order, right? And it gives a data point for us,
Yeah.
a better data point, that transparency.
And I don't know, and I haven't seen, or I guess I haven't correlated his reviews. Are they actually bad, or is it something that's...
No, it was Nvidia asked them to focus specifically on ray tracing versus like GPU clock speed or they had a better word for it. I'm sorry, I couldn't find the.
Basically, look at the fancy stuff, not the...
Well, they wanted them.
Jay-Z 2 cents was
They wanted them to review it based on their marketing points for the performance over the previous generation that they've pushed so hard. And all of that, all of those figures, we've talked about this before, all those figures that you see are compared to older gen ray tracing cards, specifically in ray tracing, getting this 100% increase in performance on, frames per second while ray tracing,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's more of what they wanted the reviewers to focus on versus traditional specs that when you send it to one of these reviewer YouTubers are going to test everything about it.
They said rasterization.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell that means. the exact, and it's a short post. It was on Twitter from Hardware Unbox. It said Nvidia have officially declined or decided to ban us from receiving GeForce Founders Edition GPU review samples. Their reasoning is that we focus on rasterization instead of ray tracing. They have said they will revisit this, quote unquote, should your editorial direction change, end quote.
So they want them to change the whole basis of their channel review specifically for this series of cards.
Wasn't there just recently Nvidia put out a statement saying it was a mistake or how they worded it was improper? I thought that I saw something that they came back out and said.
Yes. So
also include that.
No. So the global director of PR for GeForce, Brian Del Rizio, who originally put that out there. This is much longer in corporate speech, so I apologize, but you asked for it.
Yeah, I think it's good to make sure we get the whole story of where they're at.
No bullshit. This is opinion
I
piece.
don't.
It should be called Three Guys' Opinions, no facts. No, he goes, we reached a critical juncture in the adoption of ray tracing, and it has gained industry-wide support from top titles, developers, game engines, APIs, consoles, and GPUs. As you know, Nvidia is all in for ray tracing. RT is important and core to the future of gaming, but it is also one part of our focus of R&D efforts on revolutionizing video games and creating better experiences for gamers. This philosophy is also reflected in the development technologies such as DLSS, Reflex, and Broadcast that offer immense value to customers who are purchasing a GPU. They don't get free GPUs. They work hard for their money and they keep their GPUs for multiple years. Despite all this project, your GPU reviews and recommendations have continued to focus singularly on rasterization performance, as you have largely discounted all of the other technologies we offer gamers. It is very clear that your community commentary that you do not see these things in the same way that we, gamers, and the rest of the industry do. Our Founder Editions boards and other NVIDIA products are being allocated to media outlets that recognize the changed landscape of gaming and the features that are important. This is a huge run on. And the features that are important to gamers and anyone buying a GPU today. Be it for gaming, content creation, or studio and streaming. A huge run on, and then that. So I'll stop with the comments. Hardware Unbox should continue to work with our add-in card partners to secure GPUs to review. Of course, you will still have access to obtain pre-release drivers and press materials that won't change. We are open to revisiting this in the future should your editorial direction change. Then the update on 12/13/20 from the editor, much was made of NVIDIA's apparent decision to block the hardware unboxing from having access to GPU review samples. The company has already done a turnabout on the matter, though possibly because of the outcry from the reviews of the fans.
Yeah.
But Hardware Unbox then says, big news, I've just received an email from NVIDIA apologizing for the previous email, and they now walk everything back. This thing has been a roller coaster ride for the past few days. I'd like to thank everyone who supported us. Obviously, a huge thank you to Linus Sebastian.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I saw something about them backtracking basically, but and it's interesting to see their kind of full context of what they were kind of trying to say off the bat.
But that does tie into your point of them vetting these reviewers before they send it out, because Hardware Unbox user base might be more interested in rasterization performance over the gaming features, and so that's what they test. So NVIDIA's got to realize that before they send it out, and then decide to say that they were blindsided by the review material that was put out by Hardware Unbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they could have definitely approached that differently and instead of releasing it like that. I don't know. Although I guess it just kind of shows to what they said in the background without, and then it came out to public knowledge. So ignore that comment. So, well, no, yeah, I think that's it's fascinating to see, but I think it does exist out there, and you have to have that, like you said, that background check of who you're sending product to, and then also your reviewer hopefully is also not taking this as I'll make good reviews for the product because I get it free or I get one sent to myself. So, the standards, just as good quality content is really what needs to happen and needs to be there. So, well, moving on. Ray, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I went back and forth on a few different things that I could talk about, but I guess since it's so fresh, I will just go ahead and talk about there's a company called Polymer 80 that was raided this week by the ATF, as the ATF continues to bypass everything that their agency is supposed to be regulating and go after these companies who ride the line of what is deemed lawful versus unlawful by making their own frivolous determinations on what a product is. Basically, they raided this Polymer 80 company who was selling 80% kits that they called buy, build, shoot kits, which basically has your 80% receiver, which is a non-functioning firearm out of the box. It also comes with all of the other parts that would need to be assembled after machining the lower to build a firearm. The ATF has said in the past and has given Polymer a determination letter saying that their 80% lowers are not firearms because they're not. They require machining by the end user to be functional. And so now, seemingly, they're backtracking on that because this is a kit available with all of the other components that you would need, which takes a little bit of legwork out of it for the end user. Saying the ATF is basically trying to say now that they were selling unregistered firearms because it's an entire kit that makes it easy to put together. They're trying to say that Polymer 80 is selling firearms across state lines because they're considering this a firearm in and of itself, even though it's a kit that still needs machining to be completed. And this is fairly recent news. I haven't seen a whole lot from Polymer 80 because they said they're still navigating the legal landscape of it, and so they have yet to release an official statement. I have, however, heard of the ATF going after end users in a handful of southern states. I don't remember exactly where, but I know that they have been to a few doors of end users trying to confiscate this kit that was purchased.
Now, the 80% lowers have existed for a long time for numerous other things, including the AR platform, and is it my understanding as well that the expectation if you purchase an 80% at completion you do register it, and that liability is on the user?
It depends on the state. It's not illegal federally to build your own firearm, and if you build your own firearm, they do not have to be registered or serialized until you go to sell it. It's illegal to sell or trade an unregistered firearm if it has already been completed by a non-manufacturer. Then you would have to go through the process of serializing it and registering it like any other manufacturer producing a gun would. But it really depends on the state, because there are states like, I think, New Jersey, New York, and California who now require 80% lowers to be serialized prior to completion. I know, I don't remember the other companies that make them, but a lot of these 80% manufacturers have had to start building kits specifically for California that are serialized, and they just have to be transferred like any other firearm.
Like through an ATF
or through a FFL
FFL
and background check.
Which is interesting because on the political landscape, we still see nothing about Second Amendment rights, except for the fact that if you vote for one guy, they'll be protected. If not, then then they'll all go away. It's an all or nothing thing. But certainly, this is interesting because I wasn't aware of Polymer 80. I've been aware of other 80% lowers, but I'm just too damn lazy to mill out my own.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And so, since you followed this closely in the past, I don't know, we could do 2020. I know you brought up two just in the past 12 weeks or 13 weeks that we've been doing this.
Yeah.
In 2019, how many other broad-reaching ATF things are you aware of? Is there
nothing,
since the bump stock?
So the bump stocks happened earlier than that, and then there was the ATF went after a specific shotgun brand that can easily be converted to full auto. I don't remember exactly which one it was. I think it was it was based off the AA-12 shotguns that are fully auto. There was another company that was importing them and making changes to the design to make it not able to be converted to full auto out of the box. It still required modification, but I know the ATF went after there might have been one other incident similar to that, but really it's only been 2 or 3 over the last 5 or 6 years that the ATF has gone after something like this. Now, all of a sudden, towards the end of 2020, they've gone after Q, like I mentioned first. They went after SB Tactical in between, which I didn't really bring up before this, and now they're going after 80% manufacturers, and there's not really any end in sight. I mean, I've built a handful of Form 1 suppressors, which are basically build your own suppressors as well, and it's not quite as big as national news because the community of people that do this are significantly slimmer, but they have also gone after a handful of these companies that are providing kits to build your own suppressor after you pay the the NFA tax and have that registered. You have to go through the same process you would with any other suppressor. And so there's companies selling these kits to build your own after you go through all that. And they've tried to shut down a handful of these companies that are also offering kits. So it seems like their frustrations and the things that they're currently going after is people that make kits available for the end user to make the process of doing it and the legwork less in the end.
Do you think that is motivated by the larger gun manufacturers in their support through the NRA? Since I'm not a fan of the NRA at all.
I'm not a fan of the NRA either, and I
haven't been a member.
And I think anyone in the gun community is not right now, other than maybe people that have supported it for life. But there's a lot of people that are anti-NRA now. I know politicians like to bring them up as being bad guys, even though they haven't been in decades. There hasn't been much gun control that they have vehemently opposed.
No, but I think mostly the way that we oppose them is their misappropriation of funds.
Yeah,
is really the biggest thing. That just their nonprofit status, but they're kind of like the United Way, just horribly run.
Yep. Yeah. That is what it comes down to for them. But I don't think that's the reason that they're going after these. I think, and it's been stated in the past, there have been unidentified ATF agents that get in contact with some of these gun magazines and do confidential interviews and stuff like that say the higher ups in the ATF have made it known that they think they're going to have more political power with a new change in leadership. And so they're starting to set the foundation to go after these earlier because they think they'll have an easier time of having laws passed during the term of this next president, that they will be able to then set the foundation to be able to go after that even more over the next 4 years.
Sure, they don't want to just do another Fast and Furious and sell it over to the border again?
That's what a lot of people like to bring up, Fast and Furious and all of the other skirmishes that ATF has been in that have been horribly mishandled. And, of course, a federal agency is not going to respond to anything like that. So it's just people.
They never had to answer for that last one.
Yeah. Nope.
Sorry. Didn't mean to go off there, but
no, that's fine. I just wanted to bring it up because they do these, reclassification of items on a whim that people that actually try to follow the law, especially manufacturers like Q, like I brought up before, was in contact with the ATF on how they could remedy this situation and fall their products within the lines of the law. And the ATF refuses to respond to them. And then they backtrack on the previous determinations that they've made on these products in the past. And so now all of a sudden it's illegal just because it comes with some other components, even though per their definition of a firearm, you still have to do machining to this piece out of the box. So you can't slap it together and go shooting. Like, it requires machining on the end user's part to finish it.
Was there any updates on the forearm brace?
No.
Is it still in holding pattern after the outcry?
Yeah. With Q's, they had sent the cease and desist, and then they retracted that for 60 days. Q posted an update after 60 days that saying they got another letter from the ATF saying that was still on hold. They're not going to do anything with it for now because they're still trying to make determinations. And I haven't heard anything specific related to SB Tactical as far as the braces yet. The ATF, I think, was just trying to kind of slander them and turn the community against them by saying that SB Tactical only had determination letters for 2 products, and the rest of them they never sent to the ATF, even though that wasn't true. SB Tactical has said they tried to send them to the ATF, and after the ATF had reviewed their 2 braces that they got determination letters for, saying that they were legal, the ATF then refused to stop taking submissions. And through SB Tactical's released statements, they worked with the ATF, who the ATF verified that they could keep using the same basic design, which was the strap with 2 flaps that wraps around your arm. They said as long as they continued to use that design, they were fine to continue to release new products as long as they used that same basic brace concept. And so I haven't heard anything since then, because I think the ATF wasn't actually planning on initially going after these yet. They just kind of like I said, to set that base layer to where if they do decide that they will have support to reclassify these as stocks, that then they could go after everyone that's bought one.
Is there any other companies that fall within this, 80% that have
There
made
is.
statements or anything like that in this?
Not that I've seen, but I think that's out of their own self-preservation, not trying to get in the middle of another company that's being targeted. And I can't name names off the top of my head. I've only used Polymer 80 products, and I know there's others that exist, especially for AR lowers. I just haven't had a chance to use them, and I haven't done a whole lot of research on them, so I don't know companies in general. There's just nothing that I've seen.
Yeah, the experience I had is I had a bunch of employees who they would buy 8 to 10, 80% lowers on AR-15, AR-10 models, and they would share jigs to generally get them, and it was almost like a hobby bonding kind of thing where people who have machinist type backgrounds enjoy that type of work, and it's shared in a way where from my experience it's pretty humble. It's not like something that's vicarious in any way. It's just hey, how can we reduce cost and try these different uppers without having to basically circumvent the law, right? If you're looking at a particular piston type upper that you're interested in, that might be a 10-inch, and you need a new pistol build, you could get a 80% lower for something like $80, $76.
Yeah.
And you can get a parts kit from like Rock River or something, which is the one I typically always use. And you can get I always like the Ergo grip on that one. But anyway, it's like $110 for the parts on the complete the lower. And then you just have that upper that you're building and the buffer tube, yada, yada, yada. But you're essentially saving $150 on the process by going through the 80% lower, which enables you, if you're trying to build 3 different builds, if you want an AR pistol, and you want an AR-10, you've just now saved $600.
Yeah.
That's the purpose. And plus,
it really,
you could also...
It does depend, too. I mean, there's a lot of higher-end 80% kits that are out there that are more than a traditional AR lower.
True.
Vice versa. There's a lot of budget options for both, so...
Well,
I see that
step
too.
on snake lower with laser etchings.
And I think this brings the gun hobby to, building a weapon. It's not everyone can do that, and so this gets you that point of the way there. It's like a hobby. It's if I wanted to build a car, I'd order car parts that would help me build this. It's the same process.
It is a kit car versus buying one off the floor.
It's the satisfaction of them getting to build their own instead of just buying it and putting it together.
And I built my own. They used to have, there's another type of defective lower that exists, and that has the distance between the front pins is too wide, and they have to weld a plate on there and rebore the hole for the front pin. You can pick those up for about $90, and there used to be a local gun shop that had those, and so I would get defective lowers as the base rate. That was before I knew about 80% plus. I was I wasn't machining back then, so it's they have lots of different options that are interesting. They are all functional, they're all safe, but I think the same with 3D printing, right? That's another kind of segue discussion on whether or not how can an 80% be justified as a full firearm, but a print using ABS plastic on your own machine is not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's, where does that line get drawn? And that's where, folks like, Ray and I, we don't want that line to move at all. And that's where we always got put into this group of like extremists, kind of like, or your overall bitter clingers, as Obama called us, that, basically goes, dude, you're not being realistic on your gun expectations, because why not just have a license like you have a car? It's not that simple, because you could see the frontier or the current horizon of what is allowed, and it just marginally gets pushed back and back and back and back and back. Whether you're saying, is it realistic to need a 100-round drum mag? No. No, it's not. Like, apart from me going to the range and going, this is cool, that's the purpose of it.
Yeah.
But the point isn't the 50 or the 99-round drum. the point isn't the thumb through stock on the assault weapons ban of the 1990s. It's not that. It's if you don't have clear lines of demarcation between it as, rules, as culture, as, I guess, pop culture change, are you trying to hit a moving target, or how do you protect the liberties that exist for current expectations and current owners? Do they grandfather in? Do they go out? That kind of stuff.
And I had a similar conversation with someone the other day because I posted about this on Facebook, and
oh god,
it didn't get a lot of traction. I didn't think it would, posting it with who I know. Most of them aren't active on Facebook anyway. I just kind of posted it as an event, but people that are calling for specific types of gun control are doing so out of gun owners need to compromise so that we can pass this bill to make everyone safer. What they don't realize is, since the Hughes Amendment and since the NFA was adopted, early 30s, it's been a constant compromise, continuously eroding away from one side's rights. So it's no longer compromise if you're just going to continue to move in one direction, whose end goal is complete reduction of those rights to almost nothing. It's no longer a compromise at that point. It's you getting your way. There's a lot of people that are opposing that now, and all of a sudden now you've got a bunch of people standing up saying no more gun control because they realize that we've already compromised so much to get us to this point. Now we don't want to continue doing it and just lose everything.
Well, and the other thing too is we were focused on, in the early 2000s of the demilitarization of police. We got that through. That says, it wasn't until recently, I don't know, was it 2018 or 17 when military was allowed to purchase again surplus military equipment, and we've seen that been used all through 2020.
Yep.
I'm a pro-gun person, but I am anti-militarization of police.
Yeah,
been that way forever. Like, even since, you remember the G20 stuff, sonic weapons used on crowds and whatever. No, that's not the country I want to live in.
Yeah,
not even close. And so, it's not when it comes to that conversation as well, you can't just focus on one item as saying, what can I own? I think there should be restrictions on what I own, as long as you can't come to my house with this too.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you need 30 round magazines? Why do you need an APC? Like, what the hell am I going to do, bro?
Yeah, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people's argument, especially the super pro-gun people, is, that this is getting to a philosophical and, how do you view the Constitution conversation. But the reason the Second Amendment exists is because that's the arms that were available at the time by the government and the people. And so it's meant to maintain that separation of the balance. What they have is something I should have access to. It doesn't mean I have the budget to have the same thing that the military does, because they're spending trillions of dollars a year, but I should have the same access to it that they do, which is true in a lot of cases. You can buy decommissioned tanks. You can buy F-16s now are popping up on the market that are no longer in military use. And they're wildly expensive, but there's people out there that can afford it. And if they want it, sure, go ahead, go buy it.
That'd be pretty sweet. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, but you don't get the ordnance with it, and the packages, and the radar, and the
still be sweet to say I own a plane, one, but two, it's an F-16.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all it takes is the right people to buy that before they can start developing their own products that add those features on.
Yeah.
And all we need is another UFO landing, then we can get to the next level.
Yeah.
See how I did that? In case you don't know, that was last week's conversation, I think.
Yeah. I think that was last week.
That's good points, Ray. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Well, and maybe we can do some updating on this, because I think more is going to come out in a few weeks, I'm sure, about it. And I think as the political climate changes, this is something that we'll kind of keep our eye on, as we're all kind of active pro-gun people. I think it's good to kind of keep those in. So, any final thoughts for this episode, guys?
No. Schedule-wise, we're taking a break over the Christmas.
Yes, we will be probably communicating that out here soon on our dates. We'll be taking a little bit of time off, just kind of get a reset into 2021, put 2020 behind us, dig a big hole and bury it deep down inside.
Which, by the way, those Match.com with 2020 and the devil,
I haven't seen
I'd recommend. Oh, dude, look him up. That's hysterical.
Got
Imagine the devil meeting 2020 as a girl and Taylor Swift in the background. You got it.
Awesome. I will check it out. But yes, so we'll be taking a little bit of break. We may have some new content coming out for you. So look on the horizon for that. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy that. But once again, we appreciate you guys stopping by. Give us a like, follow, comment, share, whatever you want to do. Once again, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and all the others. We appreciate your time.